Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to today's live stream on how to 3x your sales results. Larry, I'm really fired up about this topic right now because I think it's a really critical thing for sales leaders, business owners, and sales professionals to be paying attention to as we look into this new year.
No, it's super relevant. And we've talked about, who knows what 2023 is going to hold in store for us. But we will share with you this what you learned today, put it into play, watch what happens.
Absolutely. So we're going to be very focused on this meeting. By the end of this meeting, which is going to last between 20 and 30 minutes, you're going to have a lot of clarity in terms of the three drivers that you can affect, that you can change, that you can enhance in order to grow sales in this new year. You're also going to have a good idea in terms of how you might go about thinking about how do we improve these three key drivers? How do we measure them? So today's going to be super practical. You may want to grab a notepad and take some notes. And as we get started, if you're here live, we welcome your comments in the comments section. And if you're watching in later, we're glad you're here. But when you look forward, here we are recording this now. It's the middle of November, right smack dab. It's the 15th of November.
Right, it is.
Right in the middle of Q4. This is a time where we're thinking about the new year. And there are some realities going on right now that are really critical to understand. And Larry, this graphic right here is the CNN fear index. It's a measure of fear in the market. Now, I think it's kind of funny because on one side of it is extreme greed, which is kind of hilarious. I don't think that's great either. This is
it's to drive the Daryl. It's to drive the point across. So that's all.
That's right.
It's all good.
Well, and what's interesting is you check this out and you can Google CNN fear index. We're not trying to be peddlers in fear at all. But what we are noticing and what we are highly aware of, and I'm pretty confident everyone listening in is highly aware of, is there's a lot of fear in the marketplace right now. There's fear of the R word, there's inflation, there's supply chain things. And we don't want to be peddlers in fear by any stretch. However, we've got to be aware of the environment into which we're selling.
Absolutely. And as we start thinking about this together, just a quick tip of the cap to Dave Sanderson.
Mm-hmm.
And when Daryl started talking about fear, as you're a sales leader, here's what I'd like for you to start thinking about is how can you bring certainty to your sales team?
Yes.
And how can you bring certainty to your company? You lead the way in this one.
But if we think about fear in terms of driving sales results, here's the challenge. The challenge is this. When fear enters the room, and we all know this in sales, when fear enters the room, people start tapping the brakes, right? People start hesitating. And if we're going to drive sales in 2023 in an environment that is laced with fear, we're going to have to figure out strategies to ensure that deals keep moving forward. And there are three areas where we believe that you can affect change to build that momentum. Because here's the deal: I don't know about you, Larry, but my quota, my expectations of 2023 are bigger than 2022, and I'm sure that's true for every sales leader, every sales professional that's listening in right now. We've got to grow in 2023 over what we did in 2022. Yet it's going to take thinking a little bit different about how we approach things. I really believe, because the environment right now is, you got the R word being floated out there. And whether we're in a recession, we're about to be in a recession, you could debate that all day long. We're not economists, but I do know this: as soon as the R word starts getting floated around in headlines, immediately people start going, oh my gosh, fear. And so we've got a need and an opportunity right now to be strategic and to be thoughtful in terms of how we approach 2023, how we equip our sales teams in 2023, and how we equip ourselves as sales professionals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what we're going to ask you is take your foot off the brake. Take your foot off the brake. And here's what I want us to think about. As a sales leader, you control this. So if you want to achieve the results that nobody's achieving, you must be willing to do the things that nobody's doing. And we're going to share with you 3 practical things to put into play to get you to achieve those results that nobody's achieving.
Well, I had a real world story about this, Larry. Last December, I got that invitation, and many
Yeah,
of
I
you hung
remember.
out here said, I got that invitation at 5:30 in the morning on my cell phone saying, "Hey, do you want to come to Mount Everest Base Camp
Hey,
with
dude,
us?"
that was almost a year ago.
It
Yeah.
was, and it was 6 months ago when I actually took this picture on May 6th, and I realized when I got that invitation in December, heading into January, and I had a goal of going to Mount Everest Base Camp on May 6th, that I was going to have to make some radical changes in terms of my training to be able to make that summit. And what I discovered was that making small shifts on a daily basis with intention and focus enable me to be able to climb up higher than I ever thought I could climb before, and enable me to get there. And this is, not to stretch this analogy too far, but the reality is, I think if we're honest with ourselves, and we take an honest appraisal of the situation, we've got a tough climb ahead in 2023, and it's really, really critical that we think strategically about how we're going to grow sales in the new year. And so
And
that's why we're here today.
absolutely. And what we're going to share with you, this is totally doable. It
It
just
is.
requires you putting it into action.
So we're going to look at 3 sales drivers today, because here's the deal. There are a lot of different things that we can do in sales. There's a lot of things. Sometimes when things get hard, some people stick their head in the sand. If you're on this webinar and live stream, I don't think you're sticking your head in the sand. Other people just go back and double down on the fundamentals. And there's something to be said for that. But, in an environment of fear, it's probably going to take more than just making a bunch of hard, block and tackle things. You need to be doing that anyways. But I think we've got to think differently about how we solve this problem. So let's look at 3 drivers that drive sales results, and how modest changes in each one of these drivers can yield massive results. We call this the 3X breakthrough strategy. So 3 drivers. And this is not rocket
It's
science.
not. It's really not.
It's
Not at all.
simple math, but it's also very, very powerful. So let's look at that first driver. We're going to look at it as the number of new opportunities. The second driver is win rate. How are we doing at win rate? And the third driver is revenue per client, or if you're kind of a one and done type of sales situation, what's your revenue per deal? So how much revenue are you getting out of each individual client, or what's your revenue per deal? Now, each one of these areas is incredibly important to sales success. And what's so cool about this is when we start to drive success and modest increases in each one of these areas, we start to see massive results. And I want to give a real world scenario on this, and then we're going to talk through how we can generate this type of outcome.
Hey, and as we get started, because this is good stuff. I want everyone just to key in on a word. It's consistency. Daryl used it's this small incremental improvements, but it
So
requires consistency. This is great stuff.
yeah, absolutely. So, and this is an exercise you can do for yourself. This is an exercise you can do for your team. This is an exercise if you're a sales leader that you can coach individual reps for, and then aggregate it. We'll show you into your whole team's stats. But let's just think hypothetically here. If we had the right mindset, skill set, and toolkit in place, when we were able to increase the number of opportunities that we were engaged in by 50%. So let's say it was 10 per month and we went up to 15 per month. We added 5 new opportunities. And simultaneously, if we were able to increase our win rate by 50%, let's say we're winning 20% of our deals right now. And let's say we were able to help overcome some of the inertia and that or create the inertia to keep it from getting stuck in the status quo or stuck in the lack of ability to build consensus. Let's say we increase our win rate by 50%. And let's say we have the right mindset, skill set, and tool set to be able to increase our revenue per client and to grow those client relationships. And we grew each one of those by 50%. Now, I love compound math because the compound math on this is really, really cool. Look at this. This scenario right here with increases in each of these three core drivers drives sales revenue up 3.4x. Now, you could do one of them and you could get a 50% growth. So that rep that's doing 40,000 a month might do 60,000. You could do two of them and you'd get nice growth. If we're able to do all three simultaneously, that's when we're able to create some very, very memorable and meaningful results. And this is what I think is going to be really critical right now as we head into this environment, is how do we focus our development? How do we focus our efforts? And how do we focus what we measure in this new year to make sure that in this time of a lot of people probably tapping the brakes, that we're creating as much positive momentum as possible?
And this is the strategy behind it. Because earlier you heard Daryl said, I don't know about you, but numbers are going to go up. Numbers aren't going to go down. And here's the key point behind this. If they go up, what strategy are you putting in place to help your salespeople achieve the numbers you want them to achieve?
Yeah, and I want to, these three numbers, I want to just talk to sales leaders here for a moment. Let's think about applying these three drivers across your sales team. There's a lot of metrics, things you can measure, and you could probably get lost in that. In fact, I think a lot of times we give up on measuring things because there's so many things to measure, we get lost. But if you focus on the three core drivers across your sales team, a lot of things happen. Here's just a hypothetical example here. Number of new opportunities, win rate, revenue per client, and total sales. So we're getting a layer below that total sales number. You notice here, rep two in this example is getting 23 new opportunities. Rep one and three aren't getting as many. So what's rep two doing? Let's find out. And let's go to rep one in our one-on-ones and coach them. Rep one's winning a lot. Rep one has got 20%. Looks like the highlight should be on rep three for win rate. And you can figure out, here's the point on all of this. You can figure out what to coach and who to coach based on these numbers. And then you can look across your team and you can judge the effectiveness of your team, not just on the total sales number, but on the averages of all of the above numbers. And the idea is, are we improving in each one of these areas? Number of opportunities, win rate, and revenue per client. Three critical areas to look at improvement. And this is, as we look into this new year, just like that training for Mount Everest, I realized I was going to have to focus on a couple things and get really good at them. And it was funny, the guy that had the trekking company, I called him up, Larry, on January, this is right after January 1 when I'd committed to go. And I said, Ian, what do I need to do to train to go to Mount Everest Base Camp? And he goes, well, if you're in good shape, probably 6 months of training will work. And I said, number one, I don't have 6 months. And number two, I travel a lot. So he said, well, here's the deal. What I want you to do is I want you to focus. It's not about cardio. I've had marathon runners struggle to get to base camp. It's not about strength training. It's about your ability to climb and endure. So I want you climbing things and I want you to focus. And the same thing comes here is, what's the thing to focus on? What do we need to focus on to be able to climb to the goal? And it is going to be a climb this next year. There are some years that you can kind of cruise. There are some years that you can, things just come at you. But I really do believe we're in an environment right now where it's going to be a grind in some markets and maybe in a lot, where we're going to have to really climb and we're going to have to focus our efforts. So you go, guys, we've been talking about three things, but is there one thing? What's the one thing? And I think it's a really good question to ask. What is the one thing that all three of these drivers have in common? When you think about how many opportunities I generate, what my win rate is, and what my revenue per customer is, or my revenue per deal, what do all three of these drivers have in common?
And here's what's the interesting thing about that, Daryl. If y'all hang out with us at Selling from the Heart, you know what we all speak about. So it should be pretty obvious. But Daryl, why don't you just go ahead and bring this up? Because the common denominator around all of this is
It's the T word, it's
it's
trust. Now check this out. This is really interesting as we were preparing for this live stream. Look at the top sales trends of 2022 on the left and the top sales challenges for 2023 on the right. In 2022, top of the list. And if you're hanging out with Selling from the Heart, you're hanging out in the right place because the top sales trend in 2022 is sales teams are focused on establishing trust and rapport with prospects. And now, as we look into 2023, I
it's the
see the T
same.
word It's there. How do we build trust? And here's what's cool about this. I think trust is the lever. Is it Archimedes that said, give me a lever and that's long enough and I can move the world, right? Give me a lever that's long enough and I can move the world. Well, what's the lever that's going to let us increase in these three areas? More opportunities, more higher win rate, more revenue per client. What's the lever, the one lever that's going to allow us to do it? We're all in on this being trust. And if you look at that, if you've got a little bit of trust, you've got a little bit of leverage. But the more you're able to grow in your ability to develop and sustain trust, you got more leverage. And that's what it's going to take to improve each one of these areas.
And this is where we believe this is the significant opportunity for you as a sales leader to exponentially grow your sales.
That's
Build
right.
more trust, grow more sales. Build more trust, grow more referrals. Build more trust, grow more clients.
That's right. Trust is the lever right now. Trust is the lever. And if you think about fear, right? Fear, what counters fear? And this is the important question to ask right now because whether you like it or not, the environment that in which we're selling is plagued with fear. And the thing that counters fear is trust. And another parallel in terms of selling from the heart is love, right? The good book says perfect love casts out fear. And this is the relational side of selling that I believe right now is more important than it's ever been. Our ability to establish meaningful relationships, to build those relationships, and then back that up with meaningful value. The authentic relationship, meaningful value, two sides of the trust coin right now. And we've got to be able to take this trust formula that we've been talking about here at Selling from the Heart, and you've got to be able, if you're an individual rep, to amp up your ability to develop relationship and establish value. If you're a sales team, the investing in your sales team to be able to do that is really, really critical. And the trust formula, and once again, if you've hung out with Selling from the Heart for any amount of time, you've seen the trust formula. If you haven't, we'll put a link to the trust formula mini course in the follow-up email we send to you. But these two drivers of authentic relationship and meaningful value, they're the things that actually
Move the
affect,
needle.
they move the needle, right? More opportunities, higher win rate, higher revenue per client. And when you mix those with the multipliers that we talk about, the inspirational experience and the disciplined habits, and yes, there is a discipline to this. It's not all feel good. There is discipline to this. When you pull all those together, you've got the ability to overcome fear.
Yeah, I remember it wasn't too long ago, Daryl. I had asked a sales leader, we were on a virtual call. So I'm looking at this person eye to eye. Wasn't face to face, but it was, eye to eye via the virtual platform. And I asked one simple question. If you looked at your top tiered accounts, top tier, not all of them, just your top
Right.
tiered accounts, we'll call them tier one. Are you at full potential with those tier one accounts? Sales leader looked me in the eye and said, no. There's your opportunity right there.
Bingo. And this is where when you look at this, so let's take the three sales drivers, right? Number of new opportunities. if I'm going to get more opportunities, I've got to amp up my ability to authentically prospect. If I'm going to increase my win rate, I've got to up my ability to build consensus and sell. And if I'm going to increase my revenue per client, I've got to up my ability to manage my clients, to grow those relationships, as well as get the referrals that are going to help me build trust in prospecting. And these are the three areas right now that are really, really critical when you think of your own personal development as a sales professional, or when you think of your team's development as a sales rep. And I was just on a webinar with the CEO of LinkedIn, listening in. Harvard Business Review was doing an interview with the CEO of LinkedIn. One of the things that really stuck out to me from that conversation, I thought was very fascinating, but he said he was talking about skill building and upskilling the sales force. And he was just using the example of how we moved into the pandemic and we had a massive shortages of employees in certain areas like the food service industry, for example, and different things. And he said what had happened was the skill set in that industry, when it went virtual and remote, it shifted, right? The skill set to manage a restaurant, for example, by walking up to a table and taking an order, versus the skill set to do that virtually and pull that off in an excellent way. The skill set was different. And if you think about, and of course, we saw this in sales, right? When we entered the pandemic, the skill set of face to face versus a skill set of communicating across a platform and a camera and all of that was a skill set we had to learn. Well, now as we move into a high fear environment in what is, let's just be honest, a post trust world, we've got to have a skill set of being able to build trust. And I believe that the people that invest in making sure that as individuals, you've got the skill set to be able to prospect and build trust while you're doing it, and to close and build trust and to manage clients, and build trust as you're doing it. The improvement in these areas, this is where we get the soft skills yield hard dollars, right?
No, absolutely. And I love this saying. It's soft skills. We call it the people skills. We call it the
Yep.
relationship building skills. The more you double down on this, the more dollars will start to come in.
Yeah, and this was the mindset behind what we're doing at Selling from the Heart right now. And all year long, we've been coaching sales teams on the skill set, the mindset, and the tool set to be able to build trust at every stage of the sales cycle. Because as we're in this fear-based economy, we want to look at these three drivers and go, what can I do to get more opportunities, to win more deals, and increase my revenue per client? And that's why the core of what we've been doing with our clients right now has been working around this idea of trust building. You know, it starts with the heart of an authentic sales professional, straight off the cover of that Selling from the Heart book. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
Oh, come
Uh,
on, dude.
it does start with authenticity and a good heart and knowing your why and all of these things. But then it moves into just saying, okay, what can I do proactively to prospect it with authenticity to build trust, to sell with authenticity to build consensus, to move forward on buying teams, which requires trust? And what can I do from a client management standpoint to grow inside my current client account? So I'm not just a one and done vendor, but I become a trusted partner. And that's where we've been focusing all of our effort in 2021 so that we can move into 2022 with these mindset, skill set, tool set courses ready to help ensure sales teams and individuals are prepared to succeed and drive results in the challenging economy we find ourselves in.
Yeah, and oftentimes, and and I know a lot of you hang out with us as Selling from the Heart. So we talk about speed to heart. The faster you can get to somebody's heart, the faster they will start opening up. But we're
Mhm.
also going to submit to you this: the faster you build trust and the faster you build credibility, the faster somebody's going to open up.
Absolutely. So you may be listening in right now and you may be a sales leader and you're saying, yes, these are the three things that I need to focus on right now. I need to be able to drive opportunities. I need to be able to drive win rate. I need to be able to drive revenue per deal or revenue per client. Your option before was to come up with a training course on prospecting. Let's double down on that, and to come up with a training course on closing or objection handling, and to come up with a training course on client management. Although I don't know if many of those exist, even though they're the biggest source of referrals and new revenue. But nonetheless, or you can look at that and go, let's just take this year and let's make 2023 the year where we upskill our sales team in terms of being able to build, establish, and maintain trust so that we can hit these three drivers in this fear-based economy.
No, absolutely. You've one of Daryl's favorite sayings, and if you hang out, this always says, simplify to multiply.
Yep.
But this is the time to get back to the basics. Keep things simple. Just keep things simple. That's why you don't see 4 or 5 or 6 things. Keep it to 3. 3 simple drivers to exponentially grow your business in 2023.
Three drivers and one focus, and the focus is trust. And so if you're a sales leader and you're thinking, well, how could that work for us? We want to invite you to a sales strategy session. And in that meeting, one-on-one, confidentially, we'll work with you to develop a 3x sales strategy across these three areas. We'll look at your current state and put together a plan. And if you're a sales professional going, well, what do I do? What do I do in these three areas? I want to invest in myself. I'm so excited as we move into 2023. We're going to have some really, really exciting announcements over the next 30, 45 days with tools to help you as an individual sales professional be able to accelerate your ability to build trust. And so what I would say to you is make this a priority, get involved with Selling from the Heart, come join us in our insiders group. And that way you'll have a front row seat to be able to see what's coming in 2023 as we work together to ensure we've got everything that we need to maximize trust so we can hit these three sales drivers: more opportunities, higher win rate, and more revenue per client. And this is what it's going to take to be successful, I believe wholeheartedly, in 2023. And Larry, I believe it's trust that's going to win the day.
No, absolutely, because soft skills will yield everybody hard dollars.
That's right. So sales leaders, reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation with you about your sales strategy for 2023. Individual sales reps, come hang out with us inside the Selling from the Heart Insiders group. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, sellingfromtheheart.net/insiders for more information. Larry, what a fascinating, fun time today. This is a critical topic. Everyone who's listening in live, we love you. Thank you for hanging out. For those listening in later, we're glad you're here. Let's work together to set up 2023 so we're able to have this conversation a year from now and realize that in a challenging market, this may have been our most successful year ever.
No, absolutely. This is the time. Take your foot off the brake. This is the time to accelerate.
All right, let's do it. We'll talk to you soon.